Hello and welcome. Let's quickly hop into the Buccaneers Week 3 matchup against the Philadelphia Eagles. So now the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 2-0, count them, undefeated on the season, and right now in a spot that most people didn't think that they would be. Beat the Minnesota Vikings in Week 1, beat the Chicago Bears in Week 2. So the NFC North, no worries. Now we move forward to the NFC East and the Philadelphia Eagles, and this will be the biggest test for Tampa Bay so far this season, of course. These are two different teams with completely different expectations for their season. One of the scariest things for this game is the rest, right? So the Eagles are coming off, they essentially almost have a bye week before this game just to prepare for the Buccaneers because they played on Thursday Night Football and now they play on Monday Night Football. Outside of a bye week, you're talking about the biggest possible stretch of time in between games you could possibly have. So, great. Tampa Bay doesn't have that. That's a big deficit. The other thing, obviously, is the disparity in talent and expectations and, just overall expected success between the two franchises for this season and the coming seasons thereafter. Now, I would just say we're not talking about moral victories, but the Buccaneers don't need to win to look good. Again, we're not talking about moral victories. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying there are just certain games in an NFL season that show you who you are, right? And I don't necessarily expect the Buccaneers to win this game. But it could go a couple different ways, right? A loss is a loss, but it's not necessarily always equal, okay? Two losses can be different. If the Buccaneers line up against the Philadelphia Eagles as a 2-0 team that I believe most people in the media this week are going to say is a fraudulent 2-0 team, because when the season starts, they always get into which undefeated team. There's always a cool, catchy headline to start the segment, but which undefeated team is for real and which one's for fake? And I think a lot of people are going to pick the Buccaneers as a for fake undefeated team. So they could step on the field as an undefeated team against the Philadelphia Eagles and prove themselves to be for fake by losing 35-7. Baker Mayfield could have 3 turnovers. The offensive line could be overwhelmed by the Eagles' pass rush. The Buccaneers' defense could still have some injuries, maybe get a couple more, and then ultimately not be able to deal with the Eagles' receiving core or stop the run. Could go bad on both fronts. That could very well happen, right? It's possible. The flip side is the Buccaneers could lose, but Baker Mayfield could continue to play turnover-free football. No mistakes. He could throw for about 230 yards, a touchdown, a relatively high completion percentage, and move the ball periodically throughout the game. The Buccaneers could rush for about 100 total yards as a team, couple scrambles from Baker Mayfield, maybe about 70 yards from Rachaad White, something along those lines. And the Buccaneers could get creative on offense to mitigate the pass rush, because that's an overwhelming mismatch on the line of scrimmage, not in favor of Tampa Bay. And the Buccaneers could wind up losing this game by 10 points or less. They could lose the game 20-17 or 24-20 or even 28-21. And all of a sudden, if the Buccaneers can manage to play like that in prime time in front of everybody, it leaves a very different taste, right? The team does not need to win to look good, because we're talking about two different organizations right now with completely different ceilings, right? The expectation for the Philadelphia Eagles is vastly beyond the expectation for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, even internally, inside the organization, inside the fan base. It's just different. They're at different places, right? The ceiling on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is not as high as the ceiling on the Eagles. I think right now what we're watching with Tampa Bay is a team that is playing through the first 2 weeks of the season. A team that is playing near its ceiling. They are getting the most out of what they have. And that's very complimentary. because they're not playing down to the level of their competition, and they're not underachieving or missing out on opportunities. They are playing as well, or essentially as well, as they can. They're limited by a ceiling. Now, I want to be so clear. The reason they have a ceiling is I'm not saying that Baker Mayfield has a ceiling or that the team has a ceiling specifically because Baker Mayfield is their quarterback. I am saying this team, as currently constructed, has a ceiling. Baker Mayfield is a part of that, of course, but it is not isolated to him and his ceiling. It's a team ceiling based on the current roster of the team. And when you have a team that's playing near or at its ceiling, it shows that, you're supposed to, that's a good team, because you're supposed to beat the teams that you're supposed to beat. And the Buccaneers were supposed to beat the Bears, and they handled business and beat the Bears, because they're a team that's playing near their ceiling. The problem is the Eagles don't have to even play at their ceiling to beat the Buccaneers. They could roll the Buccaneers at their ceiling, but they can just beat the Buccaneers beneath their ceiling. And that's the issue that the Bucs run into. They would need a C game, a B- game out of the Eagles to win this week, and that's tough. But if the Eagles give you a B game, or a B+ game, or even an A- game, and you hang, all of a sudden the season looks a little bit different moving forward. Maybe some people start to think of, how about those Buccaneers? Changes the narrative a little bit. But that's for Monday. We'll see you then. Enjoy your week.